Okay. Okay, good. Good morning, everyone. So we will begin with the opening recitations as usual. Then soon, I'm going to volunteer some of you to lead these opening recitations, especially those of you whom I know how to do it in the chant, in the cadence, in the way that we chant. Oh, Mother, sentient beings, limitless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness. May they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious Bodhi. O Mother, sentient beings, limitless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness. May they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious Bodhi. All Mother, sentient beings, limitless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness. May they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious Bodhi. Thus, until I achieve Buddha, I enter just these with body, speech, and mind. Until death I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Now to the top of page 6, Refuge. And the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until Bodhi is reached by the merit of generosity and other perfections. May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all wandering beings in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until Bodhi is reached by the merit of generosity and other perfection. May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all wandering beings in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha most excellent. I take refuge until Bodhi is reached by the merit of generosity and other perfections. May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all wandering beings. May all Mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from the bias of attachment and aversion. May all Mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from the bias of attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from the bias of attachment and aversion. Continuing on. Bajra Samaja, Bajra Samaja, Bajra Samaja, protectors of all sentient beings without exception, deities who vanquish the ruthless hordes of Maras, knowers of everything as it is, Bhagavans and your retinues, please come here. Argyam Padyam Pushpe Dhupe Aloke Gendye Nevede Shabda Pratecha Soha. This ground sprinkled with scented waters and strewn with flowers, adorned with the supreme mountain, four continents, sun and moon, I hold in mind as a Buddha land, and offer it. May all wandering beings experience such a pure realm, whatever slight virtue that may have been gathered through prostrating, offering, confessing, rejoicing, requesting, and beseeching, I now dedicate to complete Bodhi. If somebody who has the link to where the three texts that we will be most commonly using, please share in the Zoom chat. Javier has placed them on the Drigong Dhammakirti website that participants can download. I do ask that you not just randomly share these texts that we're using with just anyone. Maybe the general laying aside text is good if just some Dharma practitioner wants to do, and the opening and the dedication for the Fivefold Mahamudra text, unless you intend to become regular in this practice, it's not very beneficial, I think, for it to just be in your collection and you're not using. As I explained yesterday, one way to kind of summarize the path of practice is that the path of practice involves clearing the afflictive emotions that are adventitious. That's the word in English. Which means, they are temporary. They are not in the abiding nature. The abiding nature is what we call Buddha nature, the nature that abides as it is, the nature as it is. This nature, of course, is characterized by the quality of emptiness. Now, although empty, it has knowing awareness, which is what Rigpa is. I prefer to translate Rigpa as knowing awareness, or this knowing, this ability to know. This as a quality of this abiding nature, this Buddha nature, this mind, this abiding mind, has the characteristic, has this quality of it being empty. So the mind, or this abiding nature, is empty in itself, meaning it is not fixed, it is not something concrete, it is not something that you can possess. At the same time, this abiding nature has a knowing quality. And then the way it behaves, so to say, is that it's all pervasive. So now what is obscuring this abiding nature is what we call the adventitious stains, the temporary coming and going clouds. So the abiding nature is often analogized as the sky-like nature, the space-like nature. And if we say sky, sky-like nature, then in the sky there are also clouds. The clouds are the temporary stains. So one is the removal of these stains, the clearing of these stains. And the other, as we are clearing these stains, as these stains are being cleared, poetically you can say, the way the stains are cleared is the stains turn into qualities, Buddha qualities. And so it's not the case that you clear stains for 6 months, and then for another 6 months, qualities you work on allowing them to manifest, to arise. Not like that. The very act of clearing those stains is allowing the qualities to appear. And so in other words, the qualities are part of the abiding nature as well. But in terms of on the path while we are practicing, there are the practices to clear the afflictive emotions. There are the practices to magnify the Buddha qualities. And in the context of our Mahamudra text, it's the preliminaries, the common preliminaries of Vajrasattva practice and mandala offering. In this one text found in Chenga Drakpa Jungne's collected teachings, Chenga Drakpa Jungne was one of the key disciples of Kyoba Jigten Sungen. In fact, there were two main Chengas. Chenga is like a special title for those who are very close to him. Chenga, Chen, it means like the face or presence. Chenga is like in the presence, the one who is always in the presence. In the presence of whom? Of Kyoba. So there are two main Chengas, Chenga Sherab Jungne and Chenga Drakpa Jungne. Chenga Sherab Jungne is the one that most responsible for collecting and remembering all the teachings that Kyoba Jigten Sumgun gave throughout his life. But in Chenga Drakpa Jungne's collected teachings, he puts together a set of what he called notes. Notes based on the words of the Guru. So essentially, these are instructions of Kyoba Rinpoche. So in there, Chenga Drakpa Jungne says, according to Kyoba, for the outer laying aside, yesterday we talked about how laying aside is a more literal translation of what's normally translated as confession. So if you did not hear yesterday's teachings, it's recorded now. And if someone can also share the link of the recording, and in the future, all our daily practices, if you miss or if you want to listen again, you can go to this link for the recordings, with which Jeff is very diligently preparing them and uploading them. So confession, what we normally call confession, in this tradition, it does not involve, right, getting the forgiveness of whoever it is that you may have offended through your unskillful actions. Instead, it primarily works with, it exclusively, I would say, works with the stain that unskillful actions leave behind in your mind. And so you have to put them aside, you have to lay them aside. And then Kyopa Rinpoche says in this, the Vajra Mind, that's the name of the text by Dragpa Junne. In Vajra Mind, Kyopa Rinpoche says, for the outer laying aside, he says, perform, do the general laying aside, which is the text that we have. He says, repeat that 3 times. For the general laying aside, do that. For the outer laying aside. Then he says for the inner laying aside, like a more subtle level of cleansing that we need to do, he says, do Vajrasattva recitation. And so in this laying aside text, these 2 are there. In the Vajrasattva, very brief. Just the Vajrasattva mantra, preceded by another general prayer of laying aside. Then he said for the secret laying aside, you should practice the samadhi empowerment. That is the taking of empowerment from the Guru, and the empowerment of body, speech, and mind through meditation. No ritual, no long fancy things to do, but to take the 4 empowerments from the Guru will help in the secret laying aside. And finally, he says, for the suchness, the reality state laying aside, he says, cultivate Mahamudra. So cultivating Mahamudra, essentially, this is what our daily program will do. Our daily program will do this, the practice of Mahamudra. I'm not, if you have noticed on Facebook or wherever you saw this notice about daily practice, I didn't want to, say, well, we're going to be practicing Mahamudra, because I think it will attract the wrong people. I prefer, to say we're just doing daily practice, make it sound as boring as possible. And yet you turn up, then that means there is perhaps some kind of good merit to actually, take these practices into our own experience. Otherwise, oh, we are doing Mahamudra, ooh, people get all excited. And it usually doesn't work out. So anyway, basically daily, we will slowly, bit by bit, work through this manual, this 14th century manual on the Fivefold Mahamudra. This is closer to Kyopa Rinpoche's time, about 200 years after Kyopa Rinpoche. This is one of the earliest detailed Fivefold Mahamudra manuals. I am now looking at then in the 16th century. Now we also have some Fivefold Mahamudra texts, manuals, and some of them are actually commentary, further explanation of this 14th century text. So this 14th century text at least in the 16th century was considered one of the most important manuals for practicing Fivefold Mahamudra. So anyway, yesterday I talked about the role of these manuals and how these manuals came about, how in the early, in the first 100 years, there wasn't really something of this kind of manual. There was one, and there is one early collection of teachings that explain the Fivefold Mahamudra, but not as a manual, not as a practice text, but rather explicating the Fivefold Mahamudra in a very detailed way, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages, but covering like a lot of ground, which maybe for many of us, we may feel, oh, that's too much ground being covered. You can say that it almost starts with like, and first you sit down. Actually, that text doesn't talk about sitting down. It's not a practice manual. It's more like explaining all the things from the literal ABCs of Buddhism, of Dharma, as it is understood and practiced in the Tibetan universe. And that text is called, or that collection, there's a root text, it's called Heart Essence of the Mahayana. Tekchen Tempe Ningpo. Tekchen is great vehicle. Tempe, teachings. Heart Essence of the Mahayana teachings. One of the key disciples of Jigten Sungren composed this text. Tekchen Tempe Ningpo. But that is not really a manual for practicing Fivefold. Yeah? So anyway, now let's together do the general laying aside. Alas, great Guru, Vajra holder, and all you Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who reside in the 10 directions and 3 times, I, who am called Gonju Ishi Dorje, supplicate you, turn your awakened attention to me. From beginningless samsaric time until this very moment, under the power of the afflictive emotions, attachment, aggression, confusion, pride, and jealousy, I have committed the 10 non-virtuous actions through the gates of my body, speech, and mind. I have committed the 5 heinous crimes and the 5 secondary heinous crimes. I have transgressed the individual liberation vows, transgressed the precepts of bodhisattvas, and transgressed the samayas of the great vehicle secret mantra. I have been faithless and disrespectful towards the 3 jewels. I have been faithless and disrespectful towards my gurus and teachers. I have been faithless and disrespectful towards my father and my mother. I have been faithless and disrespectful towards my companions in the pure spiritual life. I have abandoned the sublime Dharma and disparaged the noble Sangha. In short, I now lay aside all faults and transgressions whatsoever that have become obstacles to the higher realms and to liberation, and that have become the cause for samsara and the lower realms. Before you, the great Guru, Vajra holder, and all you Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions and 3 times, I expose the faults, I confess them, I am contrite, I regret them. I will not conceal them, I will not hide them. Henceforth, I will restrain myself and abstain from them if I do not expose and lay them aside. They will not be transformed, therefore, by revealing and laying them aside. May they be cleared, may I be purified. Namo to the mandala of you, victorious Idam deities. I expose and confess the broken samayas of the Vajra exalted body. I expose and confess the broken samayas of the Padma exalted speech. I expose and confess the broken samayas of the perfect exalted mind. Hari, I expose and lay aside the broken root and branch samayas. I expose and lay aside transgressions committed knowingly. I expose and lay aside transgressions committed unknowingly. The three non-virtues of the body, the four non-virtues of speech, the three non-virtues of the mind. I confess each of the 10 non-virtues individually with faultless disciplined conduct, possessing completely pure disciplined conduct, and through the disciplined conduct that is free of arrogance, may the paramita of disciplined conduct be perfected. To glorious Vajrasattva I pay homage. Bhadra Sadhasamaya Manupalaya Basasata Denova Deda Deda Memova Sudogaya Memova Subogaya Memova Anurata Memova Savasida Mevaya Jasavakamasu Jame Jedam Jayam Guru Hong Hao Bhagavan Sarvatagata Bhajarma Memuja Bhajabhava Mahasamaya Sado Amom Bhajra Sadhasamaya Manupalaya Bhadra Tidome Baba Sudogaya Memova Subogaya Memova Anurata Memova Savasida Mevaya Jasavakamasu Jame Jedam Jayam Guru Hao Bhagavan Sarvatagata Basarasa dosamaya manubalaya basada denopatita dedamebava sudogaya mebava subogaya mebava anurado mebava sabasede mebayaja sabakamasu jame jedam sriyam guru hong hao bhagavan savadada gata basama memuja baseva mahasamaya sado basarasa dosamaya manubalaya Basarasa denopatita dedamebava sudogaya mebava subogaya mebava anurado mebava sabasede mebayaja sabakamasu jame Chedam Shreya Guru Hong Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Savadada Gata Basama Memuja Basibhava Mahasamaya Sado Umba Sato Samaya Manubalaya Basasada Denoba Dita Memova Sudogaya Memova Subogaya Memova Anurata Memova Savasidi Mebaja Savagama Sujame Jedam Zrang Guru Hong Ha Ho Bhagavan Savadada Gata Basama Memuja Basibhava Mahasamaya Sado Bhajra Sada Samayan Anubalaya Basada Denova Deda Dedameva Sudagama Sabagama Sarvasede Membaya Jasavakama Sujame Jedam Zeram Guru Ho Bhagavan Savadagada Basama Mujabazava Mahasamaya Sado Bhajra Sada Samaya Manubalaya Basada Dedameva Subogaya Memava Narada Meva Savasedi Memaja Samakamasu Jame Jidam Zidam Guru Hao Bhagavan Savatagata Bhasrama Memuja Bhazari Bhava Mahasamaya Sado Okay. Also another reminder, if you plan to print out especially the Mahamudra manual, do know that I will be making corrections still. Already between yesterday and today, I found some. And they're not like big things. They're not like factually wrong things. It's just me being picky about how certain things are translated or expressed. Okay, so let's actually look at this. So the title of this text is called The Jewel Garland, Norbu, Trengwa. Norbu is the jewel, name for jewel. So this is the jewel garland, an elucidation of the fivefold Mahamudra. So again, right, fivefold, what are the fivefold? Try to have this memorized, The fivefold is bodhicitta, idam, devotion, Mahamudra, and dedication. These are the five. Again, bodhicitta, idam, devotion, Mahamudra, and dedication. So these are the five aspects. I suppose, actually, the choice to translate it as fivefold. Nga then, in Tibetan, nga is five. Chik, ni, sum, shi, nga, five. That's the number five. Then is to possess, quite more literally. So the Mahamudra that possess these five parts, these five elements, these five aspects. So ngaden. So on page 1, in the style of how these texts are composed, practice texts, philosophy texts, in Tibet, you begin by first writing a few words of homage to the gurus, to the Buddhas, long or short. Sometimes it will just begin with Namo Guru, something like that. Then after that, the composer will say, and here I have composed the following text for the following purpose. So this is called a commitment to compose. And they say that when you set a strong commitment to compose, then you will have a greater chance of completing the composition and completing in a pure and faultless way. So beginning here, it starts with Om Swasti, which is Sanskrit for Om. Om, may all be successful, may all be auspicious. Om Swasti. May there be auspiciousness. To you, Guru, who has made manifest the meaning of Mahamudra, non-dual union of the naturally luminous Dharmadhatu, and unceasing adventitious, non-dual union of the naturally luminous Dharmadhatu, and unceasing adventitious display of thoughts, at your feet I respectfully bow. Chökyi Gyalpo, the Maharaja who composed this, Kyabgon Chökyi Gyalpo, opens with this verse of homage to the Guru. So the Guru is the one who have clarified, who have made manifest the meaning, the truth of Mahamudra. And what is this meaning? What is this truth? Actually here already given to us. So sometimes they say, if you have the merit, if you have built up the conditions, just by reading the opening homage of any text, you have the chance to completely understand the whole text. In the sense of like, you're done, no need to do anything else, you got it already. So let's see, if any of you are at that level, then no need to come anymore, tomorrow, day after tomorrow. So what is this meaning? What is this truth of Mahamudra? Is the non-duality of Of what? Well, non-duality of at least two things, right? The non-duality of, on the one hand, the naturally luminous Dharmadhatu. These terms, right? Dharmadhatu, Dharmakaya, although in some contexts they have different meanings, and the meanings is usually meaning is the context changes the meaning a little. Here, Dharmadhatu is used in the same way as Dharmakaya. Dharmakaya being literally Kaya is the exalted form and Dharma. So the Dharma form of all Buddhas is called Dharmakaya. In other words, right? The truth about everything. The reality state of all things, of all phenomena, of all people is Dharmakaya. Dharmakaya is more often used when it's in the context of talking about the minds of beings. Dharmadhatu is used more when we are speaking in the context of both beings as well as inanimate things. So then Dharmadhatu, but essentially they have the same meaning. So on the one hand, it's the naturally luminous, naturally bright Dharmakaya. And on the other hand, non-dual with that, inseparable from that, is the unceasing, adventitious display of thoughts. And this is a really kind of Mahamudra style of speaking. Particularly Gampopa. Particularly Gampopa speaks in this way, teaches in this way. See, when we started practice this morning, I said one way to think about what the path consists of is the simultaneous clearing of adventitious stains and the allowing, therefore, in clearing adventitious stains, allowing the Buddha qualities to arise, to manifest. So Gampopa doesn't reject that, obviously. But Gampopa now gives a more subtle, I say Gampopa because in many ways he's the fountainhead of this style, the source, the most obvious source of this way of practicing Mahamudra. So Gampopa, the way he articulates this, he says, actually, even these adventitious stains, these adventitious afflictive emotions, adventitious thoughts, adventitious conceptualities, they are not separate from the Dharmakaya. Right now, for us, this unceasing adventitious display manifests as thoughts, conceptualities, and then further down the road, the poisons, further down the road, the 84,000 afflictive emotions. When we achieve Buddhahood, we also turn into the unceasing display of Buddha activities. The unceasing is sometimes called the unceasing wheel of exalted activities. That's a fancy way to talk about, how Buddhas benefit all beings after they are Buddhas. It says that the Buddhas have the unceasing wheel of exalted activities. Where does this unceasing wheel of exalted activities come from? They come from the unceasing adventitious display of thoughts when completely and fully realized as Dharmakaya. And now we have a little bit of intellectual understanding of how this unceasing adventitious display of thoughts is non-dual, not separate from the naturally luminous Dharmadhatu, the naturally luminous Dharmakaya. Even having some intellectual understanding, as long as you don't get stuck there, as long as your little intellectual understanding is inspiring you to take these instructions into your own experience so that you directly experience how the unceasing adventitious display of thoughts is not separate from the naturally luminous Dharmakaya. But even having this a little bit of intellectual understanding can already help us to have a less tumultuous relationship with these endless, thoughts, feelings, going on and on and on and on and on and on and on. Because now, instead of seeing them as a real enemy, a real problem to be rid of, to fight with, we are beginning to understand, to have some clue, some idea of how this is done, of what the relationship is. Yeah. Any questions before I continue?
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
It sounds like this is saying that once you become Buddha, there are still adventitious displays of thought.
No, it becomes the unceasing wheel of exalted activities.
So the fact that they're non-dual means that they're not adventitious stains are not there because they
When
have,
you're a Buddha, they are not stains. They are not adventitious stains.
so they've changed
Yes.
to okay.
Yes.
Got
Adventitious, right, has also the connotation, although in English maybe it doesn't, but the Tibetan for this. Adventitious also means, right, what's implied there is it changes. So on the Buddha state, the wheel of exalted activities is changing. Hence, wheel. Wheel has this connotation. Yesterday I talked about this, or maybe during our weekend retreat I talked about this. The wheel, like the wheel keeps turning. In that sense, it's unending. Right now, unending samsara is an unending problem. When you are Buddha, unending is a different kind of unending now. So there's unending, but the other thing about the imagery of a wheel is, yes, insofar as the way it turns is unending, but at any given point, only one spot, one part of the wheel is touching. That's the momentariness. So now is momentary unending kleshas and prapancha, namto, conceptualizations, arising from moment to moment to moment. When you're Buddha, is the unceasing, wheel-like arising of exalted activities, moment to moment to moment to moment to moment. So the momentariness remains the same, the unending remains the same. Confusion or clarity, that's the difference. Other questions? No? Okay. So this fivefold jewel, which is the very essence of the great ocean of sutras, tantras, and shastras. Shastras are the treatises written by the people who came after the Buddha. Buddha is the source of the sutras and the tantras. So this is the essence. This fivefold jewel is the essence of the great ocean of sutras, tantras, and shastras, has come from the pith instructions. This essence, this fivefold jewel has come from the pith instructions of the Guru, our guide. Here, referring to Kyoba Jigten Sungen. Here I shall write it down clearly and without error. This is his promise to compose. So the first 4 lines is his homage, his verse of homage. Then this next 4 lines is his promise to compose. Then, next on page 2, herein the essential meaning of all sutras and tantras, the realization of the previous masters, is the pith instruction for actualizing the great Vajradhara in a single lifetime and a single body, this fivefold Mahamudra. So to actualize the great Vajradhara in a single lifetime is Vajrayana language for basically saying to achieve Buddhahood in one lifetime, in this very body, not needing to take another rebirth from here, Buddhahood achieved. Is saying, if you really practice the fivefold Mahamudra, give it everything you have, everything, not just once a day, 5 days a week, but that's a good place to start. But if you give it all of your whole life is oriented towards this, then it promises Vajradhara in a single lifetime, in this present single body. And this has 3 parts: the preliminaries, the main practice, and the conclusion. The common preliminaries. So the first part has 2 sections, the common and the special preliminaries. So under the common preliminaries, there are 2, basically. The instructions on the 100-syllable mantra to purify the mind stream, to purify your being, we could say that. Mind stream is a very technical term, but you could say in English at least, I don't know in Spanish if it works, we say your being, to purify your being, purify you, right? In a less technical way. So purifying this mind. And the instructions on mandala offering to complete the accumulations. The 2 accumulations are the accumulation of merit and the accumulation of understanding, normally called wisdom, but to accumulate, to build up understanding and to build up merit. Merit gives the mind a brightness and a joyfulness that is so necessary if you are going to develop understanding. Sometimes we think, we have understanding, we have wisdom, but then we find that, we are kind of harsh. We don't find joy. We don't find ease, Ease and joy, wellness comes from merit. Then the understanding truly becomes, wisdom. So accumulating these two through mandala offering. So first, purifying the mind stream. First, in a secluded place, sit on a comfortable cushion in Vajra posture. Vajra posture is what's often translated as the full lotus. Obviously, most of us cannot sit full lotus, so sit in a stable way. It's called the Vajra posture because that's the posture where you become immovable like Vajra, which is what Vajra, the qualities of Vajra is that it's immovable and it is indestructible. So basically here, sit on a comfortable cushion, sit on a comfortable seat in a immovable way, in a stable way. Then straighten your spine. So you pull up your body a little bit and then let it relax. Place the hands in the gesture of meditative equipoise below the navel, like this. Place in front, below the navel, below your belly button. And basically, the two thumbs, they are at about the level of your belly button. Gaze at the tip of the nose. In some instructions, they say the nose should be centered, meaning not looking up this way, not looking up that way, not looking this way, not looking this way, but in the same line as your belly button. Gaze at the tip of the nose. Let the tongue lightly touch your upper palate. That's a very natural way to leave your tongue. Leave the teeth and lips in their natural position. And let breath flow comfortably. So let's do this a few moments, to at least adjust how you sit. So if you're sitting on a chair, sit comfortably in a balanced way. And chairs are sometimes, not designed for the kind of sitting that you want. So you may have to place something at the back to push you out a little bit instead of causing you to sink into your chair. Sinking into the chair may promote a very comfortable position, but it may compromise the brightness of the mind. And so you may want to put something in your lower back if you're sitting on a chair to kind of bring your spine so that it is straight up rather than sinking into the chair. Then both your feet, want to be placed firmly on the ground. And so if the chair is too high, you may need something to support your feet. The last line here says, let breath flow comfortably. Let, don't force it, but allow breath to flow comfortably. And breath should be flowing in and out through your nostrils, not through your mouth. Please continue to practice this as I read the quote from the Vajra Garland Tantra provided in our text. You don't need to read, you can just listen. From the Vajra Garland Tantra, it is said, the practitioner should sit on a comfortable cushion, directing the eyes to the tip of the nose and placing the nose in line with the navel. The shoulders are level, the tongue is joined to the palate, and the teeth and lips are placed at ease. Having relaxed the exhalation and inhalation of breath, meaning at the beginning, you bring some intention to saying to yourself, I want to now relax my breath. So slow it down without hurry. Take time to inhale and exhale. So here it says, having relaxed the exhalation and inhalation of breath, little by little, free from effort, breath exhales and inhales just as it is. We don't close our eyes all the way. We just let our eyes gaze downwards into the space in front of us on the floor. Please don't close your eyes completely shut. Please continue and listen to, I'm going to read from our manual. You should contemplate the difficulty of obtaining the freedoms and advantages. Contemplate impermanence and death, karmic cause and effect, and the faults of samsara. From the mother of the victorious ones, the Prajnaparamita Sutras, it is said, friends, to become a human is rare. The perfect state of leisure is scarce. Liberation from samsara is rare. Since it is so, do not waste your efforts. Later you will surely be filled with regret. Even though one has obtained such a body of freedoms and advantages, this body is not permanent. This life is becoming shorter and shorter by the day. So from the Sutra of Auspicious Signs, it is said, who knows if death will come as soon as tomorrow? Therefore, you must apply yourself this very day. With that great commander, Lord of Death, you do not have a treaty of friendship. To be liberated from the sufferings of samsara, now generate this motivation, thinking, I go for refuge in the three jewels and will practice the meditation and recitation of Bhagavan Vajrasattva. Okay. So this takes us up to, in a very concise way, taking refuge in the Buddha Dharma Sangha. I go for refuge in the three jewels, and I will now practice the practice of Vajrasattva. So any questions regarding the instructions up until this point? Any clarifications needed? Yes, yeah, go ahead. Just unmute.
Just because I've never really seen it referenced too much, but when it says to gaze at the tip of your nose, are we just gazing in the direction of the tip of our nose or actually crossing our eyes to look at the tip of our nose?
No crossing your eyes. That
Okay.
very unnatural.
Mm.
All of this is to be done in a relaxed manner, especially in Mahamudra. Tremendous emphasis. Almost like someone taking a big stick standing next to you and yelling at you, relax, relax. And so what we see here is, after the instructions on how to sit, basically a set of contemplations that in the later Fivefold Mahamudra texts are called the common preliminaries, which is the four thoughts that turn the mind. And so already in this 14th century, these four thoughts that turn the mind has already been considered. We have evidence here as a set. And this set of four later, as I said, will become codified into what's known as the four thoughts that turn the mind, and then they are called the common preliminaries. Then refuge, Vajrasattva, mandala offering, Guru Yoga becomes the four uncommon preliminaries in later Fivefold Mahamudra manuals. But in this early one, 14th century, and also in the many places where Kyopa Rinpoche, even though Kyopa Rinpoche did not really produce any manuals, and yesterday I talked about possibly why that was the case. So again, I'm confused now. Maybe I talked about it at the camping, but it's more kind of history stuff. Anyway, although Kyopa Rinpoche did not really produce any meditation manuals for the Fivefold Mahamudra, or for that matter, any practices, he didn't really produce any manuals. He has a number of teachings he gave where he talks about the practice of Vajrasattva and Mandala as necessary preliminaries for the fivefold, singling those two out. And also he has short instructions in the Kyopa Kambum, in the collected teachings of Kyopa in 12 volumes. He has two instructions, very short, very brief, kind of straightforward, nothing too different from what we have learned on how to practice Vajrasattva and how to practice Mandala offering as the basis for practicing fivefold. Nowhere in Kyoba Rinpoche's teachings, and also in this text, is there any mention of how many times you should do this. In fact, it doesn't seem like, many times. Yeah, so here, the four thoughts that turn the mind is just very briefly mentioned here. And so in some ways, I feel this is a more kind of organic, natural way to strengthen the renunciation that can arise, from cultivating these four thoughts in the way that it is done now, where people do the preliminaries as a way to kind of get to the main practice in the context of like focus retreat. And then they will do like 2 weeks of the first thought that turned their minds, 2 weeks of the second thought, 2 weeks of the third thought, and then 2 weeks of the fourth, and then a couple of months of refuge, a couple of months of Vajrasattva, and so on and so forth, the way this text, has it, and I would say in the earlier tradition, these four thoughts isn't so much of a, do 2 weeks of this, then 2 weeks of this. So this is part of leading up to the next stage to train, the next stage to train. So if you want, between today and tomorrow, you can go on to page 6, the practice of Vajrasattva. So that's the regular practice of Vajrasattva, nothing too different from what you may be familiar with. So it's a Vajrasattva sadhana, basically, that is given here. So up until page 8. Tomorrow we will go on to this. But again, if you want to, know a little bit, get familiar with it, between today and tomorrow, you can read up to page 8. Yeah. Okay, so that's good. Now let's do dedication. Go back to the opening text. Page 31. By the virtues collected in the 3 times by me and the entirety of samsara and nirvana, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain the unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious Bodhi. By the blessings of the truth of the Kagyu Gurus, the excellent three Idams, Dakinis, and Dharmapalas, may the spiritual and temporal places of the tradition of the second Nagarjuna flourish. Whatever harmful discord and faults may arise, may they be pacified, and may there be abundant prosperity and happiness. May the teachings of the great Drigungpa Ratnashri, the all-knowing Dharma Lord, Master of interdependence, continue to increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation, until the end of samsara, by the power of the virtues collected in accordance with the teachings of the pure realizations of the unmistaken teacher. May the teachings of Ratnashri of Drikung, the protector on the 10th Bhumi, flourish perpetually. Okay. See all of you tomorrow.
Muchas gracias.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Gracias, cliente.